Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn. In today's episode, we're talking about free agency running back evaluation in terms of Aaron Jones. We're going to take a look at his pre-draft and post-draft profile based on data to determine his outlook in 2024. Jones played 7 seasons on the Green Bay Packers before his release and subsequent signing with the Minnesota Vikings. So let's get to his data. So first off, when you look at his college production, because college production can kind of give you an idea of what a player is going to be at the NFL level a lot of times. And if you don't believe me, just look at the statistics. So looking at offensive market share for Aaron Jones, he had a 97 percentile total offensive market share production score. That's rushing plus receiving. He also had a 93 percentile receiving market share production score, and then a 95 percentile touchdown market share production score at UTEP. These are great numbers for a running back to have. As you can clearly see, the All-Pro averages and Pro Bowl averages and starter averages pretty much hits all those numbers that you want to hit. When you get to his efficiency scores, this is where things were a little inconsistent here and there, but his touchdown percentage was pretty good, his touchdowns per touch. His receiving yards per reception were 60 percentile, and then his touch AV, or essentially his yards per touch score, was high in terms of 90 percentile, plus 90 plus percentile actually in terms of a particular metric. Now the areas where he tested really well also came down to his athleticism traits. He had a 87 percentile explosive lower body strength score. He also had a 59 percentile speed score for his size, and then 86 percentile in terms of flexibility for his size. The biggest question mark about Aaron Jones coming out was his speed, but when you see his explosiveness and his flexibility, it's really surprising that he fell as far as he did. Now, going to his adjusted production scores, adjusted production takes a look at strength of schedule, strength of team, and the age of a prospect. And when you look at him based on those particular metrics, this is where he was closer to, say, a starter than a Pro Bowler, like multiple Pro Bowler. He had a 64 percentile age score, 67 percentile MSA rating, and then an 83 percentile pass rating. So his efficiency scores, which is what the pass score looks at, bumped his data up based on the metrics that I use. His MSA rating was a little bit lower, again, because he played at lower level competition, because he has a older age score coming out. Those were the biggest factors that kind of limited him in terms of his outlook. But based on his overall pre-draft profile, you could conclude that Aaron Jones was a running back who had Pro Bowl athleticism. He had Pro Bowl production, and in terms of his adjusted production, he looked more so like a starter long term, which is essentially what he became at the NFL level. Because when we get to his NFL statistics, so if you want to learn more about these statistics, go to Pro Football Reference. But essentially, these are percentile scores over their statistics. So I'm not looking at raw statistics. I'm looking at the percentile scores. So essentially, if a player scored, say, 90 percentile, you're saying that he is better than 90% of all the running backs based on those statistics. And this particular metric goes from 2018 to 2023. So based on his RB macro data, so running back macro data is the aggregation of the various rushing production scores. So yards, touchdowns, first downs, yards before contact, the total yards before contact, the total yak. It looks at all that stuff to give you one number. And based on that data, he's been, 80 percentile. He's been more so a receiver, which we're going to get to later. But most of his production as a rusher has been okay. He was much more efficient from 2018 to 2022, 80 to 90 percentile in terms of his running back efficiency, which is the other data point to look at, which is RBEFF, which is essentially just an aggregation of various micro production scores. So yards before contact per attempt, yak per attempt, broken tackles per attempt, TD percentage, first down percentage. It looks at the micro data. So regardless of how they tested production-wise, what was their actual production on a per snap average. And that is basically what that data point looks at in terms of that. And he's been an incredibly efficient running back until he reached age 29. He did, of course, have some injuries here and there, but that's definitely kind of the concerning point, is that he kind of dropped off a bit in terms of his age 29 season as a runner. Now, when you look at his RB star rating, RB star takes essentially the macro score, the efficiency score, and the starts score, because starts at the running back position is important. And when you look at those three factors together, he has been pretty good. I think his best season in terms of that particular metric was in 2022, because he got the lion's share of starts in 2022 for the Green Bay Packers. But for most of his career, he's been mainly a rotational back. And in many ways, I would say he was kind of held back by the Green Bay Packers a little bit. You know, they constantly had these running back by committee systems that typically had backs that were less efficient, and they were kind of giving him the ball. He would make a big play, and then they would give it out to like Jamal Williams, for example, who's a good back, but he's not Aaron Jones, you know. And I think that's the biggest thing that kind of hurt him a lot on the Packers, was having to share carries with a lot of backs that were just not as good as him. Now, when you get to his receiving production, so this is an aggregation of various receiving macro production scores. He's been amazing in this particular metric. From 2019 to 2021, he was 90 percentile in terms of his receiving production as a back. When you look at his macro production and you look at his efficiency scores, because again, the EFF is essentially the efficiency score. So I understand that there's all these names being thrown around, but all it is just aggregation of all of the receiving production scores, like, you know, yards before contact per attempt, yak per attempt, broken tackles per attempt, TD percentage, first down percentage, in terms of catching the football in the backfield. There's some other data in here as well that you guys can take a look at. And if you want to know more about that stuff, definitely go to Pro Football Reference. It'll tell you exactly what those data points are. And again, all I'm doing is taking that data and turning it into a percentile. Now, in terms of his rec star data, he's been excellent in terms of that. But, and there's a big but, he has kind of reduced his efficiency a little bit. When you go from 2022 to 2023, he's been about 59 to 54 percentile in terms of his efficiency as a pass catcher. So is he losing a step? That's a little bit of a concern with him. So that's, you know, a lot of people wonder, like, why the heck did the Green Bay Packers cut Aaron Jones? And I think a lot of it just comes down to his age. This is the last point to make in all of this, is when you look at running back performances based on age from 1992 to 2022, the vast majority of basically top 10 percentile production at the running back position and top 5 and top 1 percentile. When you look at the age range there, typically most running backs or most, I would say, top 10 performances at the running back position are between age 24 to 26. Then you start to see a decline from age 27 to 28 to 29 to 30, and then so on and so forth. You kind of end your career after that a lot of times. So in terms of Aaron Jones, the biggest concern is his age. You know, he had a dip in his production at age 29, which is what a lot of running backs typically run into. Most running backs usually have a dip in their production starting at age 27, and he hit the wall to a certain extent at age 29. Again, there are injuries and stuff like that, but the older you get, the harder it is to recover from injuries. So that's the big question mark of Aaron Jones. That's probably why they signed Josh Jacobs and went with Aaron, and basically got rid of Aaron Jones because of that particular area of importance. But in terms of the outlook, so this is the future outlook for Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is one of the best receiving running backs from 2019 to 2021. But at his age at 30, it's a little concerning long term. I was and always will be a huge fan of Aaron Jones, who I highly touted coming out of UTEP in 2017. So I don't mean to say this with any malintent or being a hater or anything like that. I loved Aaron Jones on film coming out. I felt like it just took too long for the Green Bay Packers to finally see what they had in him until they finally gave him, finally started using him the way he needs to be used. And then by that point, he already kind of was out of the prime of his career in terms of his age. So that's just, it sucks, man. It really does. But I wish him the best in the Vikings. I think he finally will get opportunity, kind of like in 2022, to be the guy. But his overall efficiency numbers have been trending down with his age, from age 29. And you saw that decline a little bit in terms of his receiving ability, kind of dropped a little bit in terms of his efficiency as a pass catcher from those times. So that's going to be the biggest question mark with him. Is he an upgrade over what the Vikings have had in the past? Absolutely. But I think you need to temper your expectations of Aaron Jones a little bit. Now, I could be wrong, of course. He could just go bonkers on the Vikings next year, which I hope is the case. But if you just look at the general trends of running backs and age, you look at his production, seeing that dip in his production, again, a lot of that is because you kind of have to cut your ties a little early on a guy like him. Now, is he going to be good? Absolutely. If he ends up being a top 80 percentile running back on the Vikings, that's a win for the Vikings, of course. But at the same time, his years of, say, 90 plus percentile production or even 90 plus percentile efficiency probably are behind him at this point. And because of that, you kind of have to be a little wary of him in terms of his future outlook. But that is Aaron Jones in terms of his production data. Make sure, guys, if you like this content and you want to see more of this content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're always reminded when another video of mine comes out. Also, check out my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/jcoburn. You could have already have known this information if you were one of my patrons, because I had a post specifically on this topic before this video came out. And also on top of that, you can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Geometrics, where you can also tweet at me if you want or follow that page. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.